Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Henry Higgins III, and as 2021 comes to a close, it is time for that classic YouTube tradition that is the countdown list, as I look back at the past 12 months and rank the top 10 movies of the year. Now, before we get to the list, there are caveats to consider. Now these are obviously only for movies that were released in 2021 and movies I personally have seen. Due to this, there will be movies that you will consider top 10 worthy that won't feature in this specific countdown. There are some honourable mentions, but before we get to them, I also want to bring to your attention this tweet from December 17th. I mentioned in there that this list had been compiled for the movies seen so far. However, we had Spider-Man No Way Home and The Matrix Resurrections still on the horizon. So the question we had was, would these two films knock two already on the list off? When I tweeted that, I genuinely thought both would. But The Matrix Resurrections was a surprisingly disappointing experience. I mean, the movie itself was decent, and some of the callbacks to previous Matrix things inspired. But for me, a Matrix movie should never be just decent. And it felt like a missed opportunity overall. Due to that, it did not crack the top 10. And neither did these honourable mentions. And with that, let's start the countdown proper. Though, before we do, a spoiler warning is in effect. There will be mild spoilers except for the number one movie, so be pre-warned for that. And also please hit those like, share, subscribe buttons, as it really does help the channel. Directed by Jill Givergizian and starring the amazingly talented Najara Townsend alongside Bree Grant, The Stylist is a wonderfully atmospheric psychological horror that we actually reviewed on this very channel back in February. As we mentioned back then, for the bloodthirsty horror fans, the gore effects are as amazingly beautiful in the way they are shot as they are sparingly used throughout the runtime. The film itself isn't without black humour too, with a moment 17 minutes in being a perfect example of how this tool can be used in a horror movie to great effect. The framing of long shots, especially when characters walk out of frame while the camera itself stays put, are wonderfully done. In addition, shooting angles, including two grey bird's eye view shots, are used to great effect, while the set for Claire's workshop itself is hauntingly beautiful. The Stylist is more of a psychological study and art house horror than an out-and-out slasher, with a predictable, though earned and wonderfully shot ending. Remember, predictable doesn't mean bad. It won't appeal to everyone, but I recommend you give it a watch and judge it for yourself. After the campy fun of Mortal Kombat's 1995 movie, with it being arguably the best game-to-film adaptation to that point, and again arguably the best game-to-film adaptation until Sonic the Hedgehog almost 15 years later, the dreadful Mortal Kombat Annihilation in 1997 killed the franchise. From there, the YouTube series Mortal Kombat Legacy There was Mortal Kombat Rebirth, which was a 50-minute short, but Mortal Kombat Legacy was the first proper return to form and proved there was still an appetite for these characters in live action, leading to this reboot in 2021. A more diverse cast, most of the characters we know and love represented in a manner bestowing them the respect that they deserve, fantastic locations, amazing costumes, wonderful effects, and with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, the two pillars of the entire cross-medium franchise, being the two pillars for this film as well. Everything in Mortal Kombat, dialogue a little cheesy at times, but you can tell the people making it respected the source material, loved the source material, and wished to do justice to the source material. And this sets up a sequel nicely that can build on what worked here while improving on what didn't. If this was a newspaper rather than a teeny tiny YouTube channel, the headline would read, "Ryan Reynolds plays Ryan Reynolds and it is awesome." Shocker. There are some actors that, unfairly at times, are tarred with playing the same character archetype over and over again. But when the character archetype in this case is Ryan Reynolds, is just being Deadpool, is just being awesome, then yeah, it's going to be good. Free Guy's premise isn't unique. Fictional character realizes he is a fictional character in a fictional world has been done many times over, including Deadpool, but it is done in such a way that you forget all that and just enjoy the ride. Ryan Reynolds as Guy is great, Jodie Comer is an absolute delight as Molotov Girl, and Little Ray Howery as Buddy, Guy's buddy, brings the straight man comedy gold, and Taika Waititi, he doesn't just chew the scenery, he chews it, he regurgitates it, he sucks that slop up, and he chews it again, all in the best way possible. Cameos galore and an uplifting message coupled with great action and comedy make a fun time for all. Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead is widely considered one of the best reworkings of all time, horror or otherwise. So anticipation was high when it was announced he would be returning to that world. While not a direct follow-up to the 2004 movie, it does retain elements and is considered a spiritual sequel at the very least. As with any great elevator pitch movie, the premise on this one is simple and can be summed up in a single sentence: zombies in Vegas. So in the movie, as with any of these zombie movies, something has caused the people to become zombies, but in a clever twist, the threat has been contained inside the Las Vegas Strip, and the threat itself is about to be eradicated. Now, a mob boss has a safe full of cash he wants out before said eradication, and hires a team of mercenaries to go get it for him. You don't have to be a genius to know this is a premise done 100 times before, and it is a premise as old as time. You also don't need to be a genius to know that this simple job is going to be anything but simple. So the heist, if that's all you took from the movie when watching it, you will have a joyous time with the action and the biting and the shooting and the tigering. Oh yeah, there's a zombie white tiger too. However, Snyder litters the movie with subtleties that aren't explained, though he has said they might be in future movies, including robot zombies, time loops, and a possible extraterrestrial origin. For what could have been written off as a popcorn movie with a zombie white tiger, there is enough substance here for multiple rewatches to catch everything Snyder included. Word of mouth is a powerful tool. I had never heard of Malignant until someone told me a new James Wan film was out. Annabelle Wallis is fantastic as our protagonist Madison, while Ray Chase vocally and Marina Mazeppa physically bring our antagonist Gabriel to life in a genuinely unsettling way. And what I love is that Malignant knows its premise is batshit crazy, and fully leans into it. That's why it works. If you don't commit 100% to the inherent silliness, everything falls apart and the entire experience crumbles. Malignant goes full bore into what it is, and the end result is a joy to behold, with it being the movie I have rewatched the most in 2021. I'm not going to say anything more about Malignant because I believe that this is a movie you should go into as cold as possible. Like was mentioned about Ryan Reynolds in the video earlier, Chris Pratt is another who has been labelled as just playing the same character in different movies, i.e. Peter Quill, Star-Lord. Now, whether you believe that is true or not, and whether you feel that is a positive or a negative, will likely determine your enjoyment of this film. This is another movie where the premise needs to be committed to for it to work, and they pull it off exceedingly well. Characters are well defined for the genre, the time travel elements actually show a lot of thought in how the mechanics work, why certain people are chosen to join the future war, etc. And the overall design of the white spikes, the monsters from the movie, is amazingly good. Chris McKay directs some wonderful shot scenes alongside some truly harrowing ones. Chris Pratt is great in the lead role of Dan Forrester. Yvonne Strahovski offers fantastic sport in a role with a rather predictable twist. J.K. Simmons is in there as Pratt's buff, gruff and tough dad, and Sam Richardson is delightful as Dan's fellow recruit thrust into this war with no knowledge of why or whether he's ever going to come back. The near future tech is pretty cool, the concept of why the future soldiers came to this time. One amazing shot of Dan versus White Spikers, an unexpected twist to counter the predictable one, along with some nice genre subversions combine to make the Tomorrow War possibly the most unexpectedly great movie of the year. Ghostbusters Afterlife is another movie we reviewed on the channel, and one that, as you can probably tell by its placement at number 4 on the countdown, was reviewed positively. This film should be the blueprint for all future franchise revivals on how to toe the line between reverence and schmaltz, between homage and pastiche, between nostalgia and blatant fan service. From the musical cues, the various sound effects and certain visual cues, creating genuine Pavlovian responses of childhood wonder and joy, to the new cast creating their own legacy while respecting the legacy of what had come before, Jason Reitman, with help from his dad Ivan, did a truly magical job with this one. McKenna Grace is perfect as Callie Spengler, and you could easily believe she is a descendant of the great Egon Spengler. Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd are excellent in the obligatory adult roles in these movies. The old school busters don't overshadow the new blood, and Logan Kim will hopefully be a breakout star on the back of his role as Podcast, and there are a few cameos to look out for, both credited and uncredited, throughout the runtime. The only cast member I feel was shortchanged is Finn Wolfhard, as it feels he was only cast due to that one episode of Stranger Things where he dressed as a Ghostbuster. Other than that, the rest of the movie just works. Wonderful effects, great action, and genuine tears come the closing stages. Ghostbusters Afterlife breathed new life into a franchise many thought was lost for good, and the ending does leave it open for a new movie, whether that's with the old Ghostbusters, with the new young Ghostbusters from this film, or a completely different idea. Ghostbusters 3 was initially going to have Ghostbuster franchises all around the world, so the possibilities are endless, and I hope that we do get to revisit this at some point. With the MCU moving on from the Infinity Saga, Phase 4 split itself over movies and TV shows to great effect, giving elements of closure to old characters and introducing new ones, including Shang-Chi in his solo origin movie, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, that, while introducing new characters, tied the titular hero to the very origins of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Destin Daniel Cretton as director and William Pope as cinematographer both do a masterful job in creating a world that is both familiar and new at the same time. On top of that, Simu Liu was born to play Shang-Chi, as he presents both a physically capable warrior alongside a spiritually sensitive and warmth of heart human being. Awkwafina is perfect as his friend Katie, while Tony Leung's performance as Wen Wu is as multidimensional as a villain has had, in that it gives the MCU arguably both its most despotic villain, while also giving us moments of a loving husband and father. Wen Wu is a triumph of character building and long-term payoff, especially when we get to Ben Kingsley's return and Wen Wu's own take on the Iron Man 3 version of the Mandarin. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a great addition to the Marvel juggernaut, and it hopefully won't be too long before we have Shang-Chi himself back on the big screen, teaming up with his fellow superheroes. I enjoyed the previous Suicide Squad movie, but I can see that it did have many flaws. What it did well were the scenes with character interaction away from the explosions and the generic monsters. James Gunn obviously felt the same, as the Suicide Squad sparkles throughout due to the character dynamics and how they intertwine with each other. Bringing back a few folk from the previous films gives it a loose continuity, while the additions, in particular, a career-affirming performance from John Cena as Peacemaker and the always dependable Idris Elba as Bloodsport, they really shine. For a movie about a bunch of misfits going into battle against, eventually, a giant alien starfish, Gunn delivers an amazing amount of pathos through his characters. Polka Dot Man, for example, goes from a walking punchline to a sympathetic victim, as does Starro itself, which is no mean feat to make us sympathise with a 50-foot tall killer starfish. Comedy, action, emotion, Task Force X gave us it all, and here's hoping that James Gunn gets to do it again soon. Now, you may chalk this up to recency bias, but for me, Spider-Man No Way Home was pretty much a perfect comic book movie. The returning characters hinted at in the trailers, or as shown overtly in the trailers, were obviously a selling point, along with the non-advertised returns of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield as their iterations of the Wallcrawler. We all expected them to turn up, but the recurring MCU characters of Aunt May, Happy Hogan, Ned, MJ and MCU Peter Parker are all given their fair due over the runtime also. However, Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn steals every scene he is in, though Jamie Foxx and Alfred Molina also have a good crack at the whip too, and Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange gives value to the crossover in his own way. What was a huge surprise was the amount of screen time Tobey Man and Spider-Andrew were given. Going in, I was sure they would simply turn up at the last minute while MCU Parker was getting his arse handed to him by the villains at the Statue of Liberty, the finale battle hinted at in the trailer, and they would come in just to save the day and that was it. But that was not the case. I had a massive grin when the Amazing Spider-Man stepped through the portal. It was a genius way to Loki introduce the character, followed by the Raimi version, then having them all work together in the lab, and then the three Spider-Men work together in battle was expertly done. They got much more screen time than I thought they ever would, and I thank everyone involved for making that happen. Spider-Man No Way Home is emotional, it's uplifting, it's heartbreaking, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, all in equal measure, and where the character goes from here is definitely something to look forward to. And there you have it, the channel's top 10 movies of 2021. Now, as always, lists are subjective and it's always fun to find out what other people think, so drop your own top 10s in the comments below. Look out for other upcoming videos, including 2 unboxings and a quick discussion about the potential rebranding of the channel as a whole. The unboxings are going to be for the figures over there, the Iron Man Hot Toys Cos Baby figures. There may be others, but those 2 are definitely getting done. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend it here with me, going over the top 10 movies of 2021. We'll see you again soon on the next videos. Stay safe, wear a mask, get your vaccine, look after yourself and look after each other. Goodbye.